The message arrived at the Galactic Assembly like a death notice. Every species in the chamber fell silent when they heard the words. Humanity had made contact with the Varixian Dominion. Ambassador Alara Vance stood at her station and watched the reactions around her. The tall Fennery delegates lowered their heads in what looked like prayer. The crystalline Sheth made sounds of grief. The insectoid Kraveen simply turned away, as if they could not bear to watch what would happen next. Everyone in the galaxy knew what the Varixian did to new species. They conquered. They enslaved. They destroyed anyone who resisted. In 3,000 years, no civilization had ever survived first contact with them. "We offer our condolences," said the assembly speaker, an ancient being made of living metal. "Earth will be remembered." Alara did not respond. She simply watched the main screen as it showed the Varixian fleet entering human space. There were over 200 warships, each one large enough to destroy a city with a single blast. Against them, humanity had perhaps 40 vessels of any real size. The numbers told a simple story. Humanity would lose. On the lead Varixian ship, Commander Tharnvex stood before his officers with satisfaction on his scarred face. He had conquered 63 worlds in his lifetime. Earth would be Ski 4. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. His communication officer obeyed. And within moments, Tharnvex was broadcasting to every screen on Earth. "Humans," he said, his voice deep and filled with contempt. "I am Tharnvex, of the Varixian Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender all resources. You will accept our rule. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your cities. You have 1 day to comply," ended the transmission and waited. In his experience, this was when the begging would start. The pleas for mercy. The desperate offers of tribute. He had heard it all before, and it always ended the same way. But the response that came was not what he expected. A single human ship appeared on his sensors. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle. It flew directly toward his fleet, alone and unarmed. "What is this?" Tharnvex demanded. "Are they surrendering already?" "Unknown, Commander," his tactical officer replied. "The vessel carries no weapons. It is requesting communication." Tharnvex laughed. "Open the channel. Let us hear what they have to say." The screen flickered, and a human face appeared. The man was middle-aged with gray in his hair and calm eyes that showed no fear. He wore a simple uniform with the name Chen written on it. "I am Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Vessel Messenger," the human said. "I am here to deliver humanity's response to your ultimatum." "Then deliver it," Tharnvex said, amused by the human's composure. "And make it entertaining." Captain Chen nodded once. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. "We have studied your path," he said. "We have examined your history. We have seen what you have done to others, and we know where your path leads. So hear our words carefully, for we will not repeat them." Tharnvex leaned forward, curious despite himself. "Turn back now," Captain Chen continued. "Leave this system. Change your ways. This is your only warning. We will not fight you. We will not negotiate with you. We will not speak to you again. But we give you this chance, freely and without condition. Turn back." The transmission ended. For a long moment, the bridge of the Varixian flagship was silent. Then Tharnvex began to laugh. His officers joined him, the sound filling the command center. "Turn back," Tharnvex said between laughs. "Change our ways? These creatures are insane. A human vessel is leaving, Commander," his tactical officer reported. "It is returning to Earth." "Let it go," Tharnvex said, still chuckling. "They have given us their answer. Now we will give them ours. Begin the advance. We take Earth tomorrow." Back at the Galactic Assembly, the delegates had watched the entire exchange. They were confused. Some thought the humans had lost their minds. Others believed it was some kind of trick. The Fennery ambassador approached Alara Vance with concern in his large eyes. "Ambassador," he said gently, "I do not understand. Your people had a chance to negotiate, to perhaps save some of your population. Why did you waste it on such a strange message?" Ilara looked at him with an expression he could not read. It was not wasted, she said. We gave them exactly what they needed. But they laughed at you. They are still coming. Yes, Alara agreed. They are. We expected nothing else. The Fennery struggled to understand. Then why send the warning at all? Alara was quiet for a moment. When she answered, her voice was soft but certain. Because everyone deserves one chance, she said. Even those who will not take it. We did not send that message because we thought they would listen. We sent it because we needed to give them the choice. What they do with it is their responsibility. The Fennery shook his head. I do not understand your species at all. If you do, Alara replied. But perhaps, after this is over, more will. 3 days later, the Verixen fleet reached Earth orbit. Every sensor in the galaxy was pointed at the small blue planet, waiting to witness its destruction, but the destruction did not come. Human ships remained in their docks. The population went about their daily lives. No evacuation was ordered. No defenses were raised. The planet simply waited, as if the massive fleet above them was nothing to worry about. The galaxy watched in complete confusion. Why are they not fighting? The assembly speaker asked Alara, why are they not running? Alara looked at the screen showing Earth, peaceful and quiet under the shadow of 200 warships. Because we do not need to, she said simply. They were warned. Warned of what? The speaker demanded. What could possibly save them now? Alara turned to face the assembled delegates of 100 species. Her expression held something strange, something that looked almost like sadness. Not them, she said quietly. The warning was not to save us. It was to save them, and they did not listen. She looked back at the screen. Now they will learn why they should have. The Verixen fleet had been in Earth's orbit for 3 days, and nothing made sense anymore. Commander Tharnvex stood on his bridge and stared at the planet below. He had conquered 63 worlds. He knew how this was supposed to go. The enemy would fight, and he would crush them. Or they would surrender, and he would take everything they had. Those were the only 2 options. But the humans did neither. Their ships sat in their stations, powered down. Their cities continued to function normally. People walked in the streets, went to work, lived their lives. It was as if the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was not hanging above their heads. This is wrong, Tharnvex muttered. Something is very wrong. His second-in-command, a female officer named Kessavorn, stepped forward. Perhaps they are simply accepting their fate, Commander. Some species choose to die with dignity rather than fight. No, Tharnvex said. I have seen acceptance. This is not that. They are not afraid. They are not sad. They are just... waiting. He slammed his fist against the console. I will not be ignored. Prepare a strike team. We will destroy one of their orbital stations. Let them see that we are serious. The order was carried out within the hour. A Verixen warship approached a human space station and opened fire. The station had no weapons to defend itself. It broke apart in seconds, fragments spinning into the void. 300 humans died. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for humanity's response. But there was no response. No angry transmissions. No desperate attacks. No surrender. Just silence. The only message from Earth was a brief statement from Ambassador Alara Vance to the Galactic Assembly. They were warned, she said. The path is now set. Then she said nothing more. On a different Verixen ship, far from the command vessel, a young officer named Corvith watched everything with growing unease. He was not a warrior. He had joined the Dominion's fleet to be a navigator, to explore the stars. He had never killed anyone. He had always felt uncomfortable with what his people did to others. Now that discomfort was turning into something else. Something like fear. This is not right, he said to himself as he reviewed the humans' behavior. They know something. They must know something. He began to search through the Dominion's historical archives. If the humans had some secret weapon, some hidden defense, there might be records of something similar. He looked through files about past conquests, searching for any species that had acted like this. Most records showed the same patterns: fighting, surrender, death, nothing like what the humans were doing, but then he found something strange. A file marked with the highest security classification, a species called the Hollow Ones. The file was almost empty, most of it deleted or hidden. But the fragments that remained made Corvat's blood run cold. They did not fight. One fragment read, "They simply waited." Another fragment, "We did not understand until it was too late." The most disturbing of all, "They tried to warn us." Corvath stared at the screen, his heart's beating fast. The Hollow Ones had warned the Verixen, just like the humans had. And something terrible had happened afterward. Something so terrible that the Dominion had tried to erase all records of it. He needed to find out more. But first, he needed to see the humans for himself. The landing parties had already begun moving to Earth's surface. Thousands of Verixen soldiers marched through human cities, expecting to find cowering civilians ready to serve their new masters. What they found instead confused them deeply. The humans watched them with calm eyes, not angry, not scared. There was something in their expressions that the Verixen had never seen before. It took a while for the soldiers to recognize it. Pitied, the humans looked at the Verixen soldiers with pity, as if the conquerors were the ones who deserved sympathy, as if the armed warriors marching through their streets were somehow victims in one city square. A Verixen squad leader confronted a group of humans who were simply sitting on benches, watching the soldiers pass. "Why do you not run?" he demanded. "Why do you not fight? Do you not understand what will happen to you?" An old woman looked up at him. Her face was wrinkled with age, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "We understand," she said softly. "We understand better than you do. Then why do you not fear us?" The old woman smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Because fear would not help you. Nothing can help you now. You were given a choice, and you made it." The squad leader did not know what to say. He had faced enemies who screamed curses at him. He had faced cowards who begged for their lives. But he had never faced someone who looked at him with such gentle sorrow. In another part of the city, a young human girl approached a Verixen soldier who was standing guard. She was perhaps 8 years old, dark hair and bright eyes. The soldier raised his weapon, more out of reflex than real threat. The girl did not flinch. "I am sorry," she said in a small voice. "Sorry?" The soldier repeated, confused. "Sorry for what?" "For what is coming," the girl replied. "We tried to tell you. We tried to warn you. I wish you had listened." Then she turned and walked away, leaving the soldier standing there with a feeling he could not name. Back on the command ship, Corvath finally broke through the security on the Hollow One's file. What he found made him sit back in his chair, unable to move. The Hollow Ones had not been destroyed by weapons. They had not been killed by enemies. Something had happened to them from inside. Something had broken them from within. And the last entry in the file, written by a Verixen commander who had witnessed the end, contained only one sentence: "Did not fight us. They did not need to. They simply waited for us to understand what we had done." Corvath looked out his window at Earth, peaceful and quiet below. "What did you do to them?" he whispered. "What are you going to do to us?" The planet did not answer. It just waited, and somewhere in the back of his mind, Corvath felt the first tiny echo of something he could not explain. Like a distant voice, too far away to hear clearly. Like a memory that was not his own. On the 5th day of the occupation, the first Verixen soldier collapsed. He was walking through a human city when he suddenly stopped moving. His eyes went wide, staring at something no one else could see. Then he fell to the ground and did not get up. He was still breathing. His hearts were still beating, but he would not wake. Within an hour, 50 more soldiers fell the same way. By the end of the day, the number was in the hundreds, and it was spreading. Medical officers examined the fallen soldiers and found nothing wrong with their bodies. Their brains were active, more active than normal, but they were trapped somewhere inside their own minds, unable to respond to anything in the outside world. Commander Tharnvax received the reports with growing fury. His invasion was falling apart without the enemy firing a single shot. "Find out what they did to us," he ordered. "The humans must have some kind of weapon. A poison, a disease. Find it. But the human prisoners they captured told them nothing useful. They simply repeated the same words over and over. You were warned. We cannot stop what comes next. In the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador Alara Vance finally stood to address the delegates. The chamber was silent. Every species wanted to understand what was happening to the Verixen. You have all asked how humanity planned to survive, Alara began. The truth is, we did not plan to fight at all, because we knew we would not need to. She activated a display that showed ancient ruins from dozens of dead worlds. When humanity first entered space, we discovered something interesting. The galaxy is full of ruins, civilizations that rose, conquered, and then vanished. We wondered why, so we studied them. She changed the display to show complex patterns of energy. What we found was a force that exists throughout the universe. We call it ethical resonance. It is not magic. It is not divine punishment. It is simply a natural law, like gravity or light. The delegates leaned forward, listening intently. When a being causes suffering to another being, that suffering creates a small echo in the fabric of space itself. A single death creates a tiny echo. 1,000,000 deaths create a larger one. 1,000,000,000 deaths create something that cannot be ignored. She paused to let them understand. These echoes do not disappear. They accumulate, and eventually they return to their source. The being who caused the suffering begins to experience it themselves. Every death, every moment of fear, every scream they ignored, it all comes back. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions and denials. Some accused her of lying. Others demanded proof. Alara waited until they were quiet again. The Verixen Dominion has conquered thousands of worlds, she said. They have killed billions of beings. That weight has been building for 3,000 years, and now it is returning. On the Verixen command ship, Tharnvex listened to this broadcast with anger burning in his chest. Lies, he spat. Human tricks. They have done something to our soldiers, and they are trying to cover it with this fantasy. But even as he spoke, he felt something strange. A pressure in his mind, a whisper at the edge of his thoughts. He shook his head, trying to clear it. Corvith stood at the back of the bridge, watching his commander. He had read the files about the Hollow Ones. He knew this was not a trick. Commander, he said carefully, perhaps we should consider withdrawing, at least until we understand what is happening. Withdraw? Tharnvex turned on him with fury. We are the Verixen Dominion. We do not withdraw. We do not run. We conquer. He pointed at the image of Earth on the main screen. These creatures have humiliated us with their silence. They have struck at our soldiers with their coward's weapon. Say no more. We will show them what happens to those who defy us. He looked at his weapons officer. Target their largest cities. Fire everything we have. The officer hesitated. Commander, our ships are also affected. Many crews are falling ill. We may not have enough personnel to operate all weapons. Then use what we have, Tharnvex snarled. Do it now. The weapons began to charge. On the planet below, millions of humans looked up at the sky, knowing what was coming, and then it happened. THRN-Vex froze in place. His eyes went wide, seeing something that was not there. A small sound escaped his throat, a sound of confusion and pain. He was no longer on his ship. He was somewhere else. Somewhere dark and filled with terror. He saw a child. A small being with purple skin and 4 arms. The child was crying, calling for its mother. And then Tharnvex watched as Verixen soldiers killed the child's family. One by one, while it screamed, he felt the child's terror. He felt its grief. He felt its final, desperate hope that someone would save it. And then he felt it die. The vision ended. But another began immediately. A different world. A different victim. An old man this time, watching his village burn, feeling the heat, tasting the smoke, dying slowly in the flames, then another vision. And another. And another. Every being Tharnvex had ever ordered killed. Every life he had ended. He was experiencing their final moments, feeling what they felt. suffering what they suffered. He fell to his knees on the bridge of his ship, unable to control his own body. Tears ran down his scarred face. Around him, other officers were falling too. Some screamed, some wept. Some simply stared into nothing, lost in memories that belonged to their victims. The weapons charging sequence stopped. There was no one left to operate the systems on Earth. Humans watched the Varixen fleet go silent. Lights flickered and dimmed on the warships. The great machines of war drifted in orbit, crewed by soldiers who could not move. Corveth remained standing. His mind was clear. The echoes touched him, but they did not take him. He did not understand why until he looked at his own hands. Clean hands. Hands that had never taken a life. He had joined the fleet to explore, not to kill. And that choice, made years ago for simple reasons, had saved him. He walked through the bridge, stepping over his fallen comrades. The communications panel was still active. With shaking hands, he opened a channel to Earth. "This is Corveth of the Varixen fleet," he said. "I am still conscious. I do not know why. Please, can anyone tell me what is happening? Can it be stopped?" The response came from Captain Marcus Chen, the same man who had delivered humanity's warning. "It cannot be stopped," Chen said. His voice was not cruel. It was tired and sad. "But it can be survived. That is why we warned you. Not to threaten, not to boast. We simply wanted to give you time to choose a different path." Corveth looked at Tharnvex, curled on the floor, living through 1,000 deaths. "What do I do?" Corveth asked. "How do I help them?" There was a pause before Chen answered. "You cannot help them escape what they are feeling," he said. "But you can help them survive it. Stay with them. Let them know they are not alone. That is the only comfort you can offer now." Corveth sank into a chair, surrounded by the suffering of his people. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you help us after what we did to you?" Chen's answer was simple. "Because suffering does not have sides, and compassion should not have conditions." Corveth had not slept in 3 days. He moved through the silent corridors of the command ship, checking on fallen soldiers one by one. Some were quiet, lost in whatever visions trapped them. Others made sounds of pain or whispered words of apology to people who were not there. He was not alone in his work. Human medical teams had arrived on the second day, boarding Varixen ships without weapons or protection. They came to help. At first, Corveth could not understand it. The Varixen had destroyed a human station. They had killed 300 innocent people. They had occupied human cities and planned to enslave the entire species. And now, humans were caring for Varixen soldiers as gently as they would care for their own children. Why? He asked a human doctor named Sarah, who was treating a Varixen officer. "Why are you doing this?" Sarah looked up from her patient. The Varixen officer was weeping in his sleep, trapped in the memory of someone he had killed long ago. "He is suffering," she said simply. "That is reason enough. But we are your enemy." Sarah shook her head. "You were going to be our conquerors. That is not the same as being our enemy. And right now, you are not even that. Right now, you are just people in pain." She returned to her work, adjusting the officer's position to make him more comfortable. "Besides," she added, "hurting you would not help us. It would not bring back the people we lost. It would only add to our own weight." Corveth thought about that as he continued his rounds. The concept was strange to him. Varixen culture taught that strength meant dominance. Power meant control. If someone harmed you, you harmed them back, twice as hard. But humans seemed to believe something different. They seemed to think that compassion was not weakness. That helping others, even enemies, was a form of strength. He found Commander Tharnvex in his quarters, lying on the floor where he had fallen days ago. The commander's face was twisted with pain. His lips moved constantly, forming words that Corveth could barely hear. "I am sorry," Tharnvex whispered. "I am sorry. I did not know. I did not understand." Corveth knelt beside him. This was the being he had feared his entire career. The greatest warrior of the Dominion, the conqueror of 63 worlds. Now he was just a broken creature, drowning in the suffering he had caused. A human advisor had told Corvith that there were two possible outcomes for those experiencing the resonance. Some would be destroyed by it, their minds shattered by the weight of what they had done. Others would survive, transformed by understanding into different beings entirely. The key, the advisor said, was whether they faced the visions alone or with support. Isolation led to madness. Connection led to survival. Corveth made a decision. He sat down next to Tharnvex and placed a hand on the commander's shoulder. "I am here," he said. "You are not alone." Tharnvex's eyes flickered, showing a moment of awareness before another vision pulled him under. "Stay with me," Corveth continued. "Face what you must face, but know that someone is waiting for you on the other side." In the Galactic Assembly, the delegates watched these events with amazement. The most feared empire in the galaxy was being brought low, not by weapons, but by the weight of its own actions. And the species they had tried to conquer was helping them through it. A Fenry delegate approached Ambassador Ilara Vance with questions that had been building for days. "Why did humanity not fight?" he asked. "You could have tried. You could have resisted." Ilara turned to face him. "If we had fought, we would have killed Verixen soldiers. Each death would have added to our own ethical weight. And more importantly, it would have made the resonance hit the Verixen all at once, destroying them completely. By not fighting, we gave them a chance to survive this." "You wanted them to survive?" "We wanted them to have the choice," Ilara corrected. "The same choice we gave them in our warning. The choice to become something different." The Fenry struggled with this idea. "But some will not survive. Some will be destroyed by the resonance." "Yes," Ilara agreed sadly. "Those who cause the most suffering will suffer the most in return. Some will not be able to bear it. That is the price of their choices. We cannot change that. We can only offer comfort along the way, and those who survive. What will they become?" Ilara looked at the screens showing human medics working alongside Verixen survivors like Corvith. "They will become people who truly understand what they did," she said. "People who have felt every death they caused. They will never be able to harm others again because they will know exactly what it means." Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, some Verixen began to wake. They did not wake as conquerors. They woke as beings who had lived 1,000 deaths. Their eyes held a new kind of knowledge. Their voices carried a new kind of weight. Many could not speak at first. They simply sat in silence, processing what they had experienced. Human counselors stayed with them, patient and understanding. Corveth remained by Tharnvex's side through it all. He talked to the commander even when Tharnvex could not respond. He told him about the stars they had explored together. He reminded him that there was more to existence than conquest and death. And on the 21st day, Tharnvex opened his eyes. He did not speak immediately. He just lay there, staring at the ceiling, tears running down his face. Corvath waited, giving him time. Finally, Tharnvex turned his head and looked at the young navigator who had stayed with him. "Felt them," he said, his voice rough and broken. "Every single one. Every being I ordered killed. I felt them die. I felt their fear. I felt their love for the families they would never see again." He closed his eyes, more tears falling. "How did I not know?" he whispered. "How did I cause so much pain without understanding what I was doing?" Corveth did not have an answer. But a human voice spoke from the doorway. "'Cause you never had to feel it," said Captain Chen, who had come to check on the survivors. "Causing harm is easy when you do not experience the consequences. That is why the resonance exists, to teach us what our actions truly mean." Tharnvex looked at the human. This was the man he had laughed at. The man whose warning he had ignored. "You knew," Tharnvex said. "You knew this would happen to us?" "Yes, then why did you warn us? Why not just let us destroy ourselves?" Chen walked into the room and sat down across from the fallen commander. "Because that is not who we are," he said. "We do not believe in revenge. We do not believe in letting others suffer when we could help. We warned you because everyone deserves a chance to choose differently. You did not take that chance, but we gave it anyway." Tharnvex was silent for a long moment. "What happens now?" he finally asked. Chen looked at him with eyes that held no anger, only a deep and patient compassion. Depends on you, he said. You have felt what you did. You cannot unfeel it. The question is what you will do with that knowledge. Will you let it destroy you? Or will you let it change you? Tharnvex looked at his hands. Hands that had ordered the deaths of millions. Hands that now trembled with the memory of every life they had ended. I do not know if I can live with this, he admitted. You can, Chen said. Because you must. The dead deserve a witness who remembers them. And the living deserve a voice that warns others not to follow your path. For the first time in his long and violent life, Tharnvex understood what true responsibility meant, and slowly, painfully, he began to accept it. The Galactic Assembly had never seen anything like it. Commander Tharnvex, the most feared conqueror in 1,000 years, stood before the delegates of 100 species, but he did not stand as a warrior. His armor was gone. His weapons were surrendered. He wore simple clothes, and his face carried the weight of 1,000,000 memories that were not his own. When he spoke, his voice was different. The arrogance was gone. The cruelty had been burned away. What remained was something raw and honest. I have felt them, he said to the silent chamber. Every being the Dominion killed. Every child who cried for parents who would never come. Every elder who watched their world burn. Every innocent who asked why this was happening to them. He paused, struggling with emotions that would have been impossible for him to feel just weeks ago. I cannot undo what I did. I cannot bring them back. But I can make certain that no one else dies by Verixen hands. He straightened his shoulders and spoke the words that changed galactic history. The Verixen Dominion is dissolved. Effective immediately. All conquered worlds are released. All slaves are freed. Our military fleet will be dismantled. We will keep only enough ships to defend our home system, nothing more. The chamber erupted. Some delegates cheered, others wept with relief. Species that had lived in fear of Verixen, conquest for generations, could finally feel safe, but others in the galaxy heard this news with different emotions. The Keith hegemony, a conquering species that had been expanding for 500 years. The Vorn Collective, which had enslaved dozens of worlds. The Burning Path, a religious empire that spread its faith through violence. They all watched the fall of the Verixen with growing terror. Because if the resonance was real, they would face the same fate eventually. Messages flooded the Galactic Assembly. Some were angry, calling the resonance a human weapon that must be destroyed. Others were desperate, asking if there was any way to avoid the coming reckoning. Ambassador Alara Vance addressed them all. The resonance is not a weapon, she said. We did not create it. We cannot control it. It is simply a part of how the universe works. Like gravity pulls objects together, the resonance returns suffering to its source. Then how do we stop it? Demanded the Keth ambassador, fear clear in his voice. You cannot stop it, Alara replied. But you can change its outcome. The resonance is not instant. It builds over generations. Species who stop causing harm now will face a smaller reckoning. Those who continue will face a greater one. She looked directly at the Keth ambassador. You still have time. The question is whether you will use it. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. Wars that had raged for centuries began to end. The Keth hegemony announced a withdrawal from conquered territories. The Vorn Collective began releasing slaves. Even the Burning Path declared a period of reflection. Not all aggressive species changed. Some refused to believe the resonance was real. Some were too proud to admit they had been wrong. But many looked at what had happened to the Verixen and decided they did not want to experience the same fate. Humanity released all their research on the resonance to the galaxy. They explained how they had discovered it, how it worked, and what could be done to prepare for it. They shared everything without asking for anything in return. Why would you give this away? Asked the Sheth ambassador, whose crystalline species had always valued knowledge above all else. This information could have made you the most powerful species in the galaxy. Ilara shook her head. Power was never the goal. We shared this knowledge because it was the right thing to do. Every species deserves to understand the consequences of their actions. What they do with that understanding is their choice. On a rebuilt human station orbiting Earth, Corvith stood at a window and looked out at the stars. Beside him was Captain Marcus Chen, the man who had delivered humanity's warning to the Verixen fleet. "I still do not fully understand your species," Corvath admitted. "You had every reason to hate us, to want revenge. But instead, you helped us survive." Chen smiled slightly. "We learned a long time ago that hatred only creates more suffering. And more suffering only adds to the weight that must eventually be faced." "But how did you discover this? The resonance, I mean? Other species have existed for thousands of years longer than humanity. Why did none of them find it?" Chen was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain. "Human history is full of small versions of the resonance," he finally said. "We call them guilt, trauma, conscience. When humans cause harm, we feel echoes of that harm in our own minds. Not as strongly as the true resonance, but enough to teach us that actions have consequences." He looked at Corvith. "We recognized the pattern because we had lived it over and over throughout our history. We knew what it felt like to carry the weight of our actions. So when we found evidence of the greater resonance, we understood what it meant." Corvith thought about this. The Verixen had never felt guilt. They had seen it as weakness, something to be eliminated. Perhaps that was why they had never discovered the resonance until it was too late. "What will you do now?" Chen asked. Corvith had thought about this question for many days. The answer had become clear. "The warning you gave us saved many of my people," he said. "Not all, but many. I want to give others the same chance. I want to travel to aggressive species and tell them what happened to us. Show them that change is possible." Chen nodded slowly. "That is a worthy goal, and you will not be alone. Humanity has been doing the same thing for years. We would be honored to have you join us." 5 years later, a joint human-Verixen ship approached the border of new space. Inside was Corveth, now an ambassador for redemption, and a crew made up of species that had once been enemies. Before them was a fleet belonging to the Narith expansion, a young empire that had recently begun conquering its neighbors. They were aggressive, proud, convinced of their own superiority, just like the Verixen had once been. The Narith commander appeared on the communication screen. His face was marked with scars of battle, and his eyes held the same arrogance that Corvith remembered seeing in Tharnvex. "Unknown vessel," the commander said. "You are entering Narith space. Identify yourself or be destroyed." Corvith stood before the screen. Behind him, humans and Verixen and others worked together in quiet unity. "I am Corvith, of the Verixen, or what remains of them. I am here to deliver a message." The Narith commander laughed. "The Verixen are finished. They are nothing now. Why should we listen to the words of the fallen?" "Because we fell so that others might learn," Corvath replied calmly. "And because the message we carry may save your species from the same fate." He took a deep breath and spoke the words he had learned from humanity, the words that had once been offered to his own people. "We have studied your path. We know where it leads. So hear our words carefully, for we will not repeat them. Turn back now. Leave your conquered worlds. Change your ways. This is your only warning." The Narith commander's laughter faded. Something in Corvath's voice, something in his eyes, made the commander pause. "What happens if we do not listen?" He asked. Corvath thought of Tharnvex, spending his remaining years building schools and hospitals on worlds he had once burned. He thought of the millions of Verixen who had not survived the resonance. He thought of the human medics who had held his people's hands through the darkness. "Then you will learn the same lesson we did," Corvith said, "and the teaching will be more painful than anything you can imagine. But it does not have to be that way. You still have time to choose differently." He leaned forward. "The warning is a gift. It is the only gift we can give. What you do with it is up to you." The transmission ended. The Narith fleet hung in space, uncertain. The future was unwritten. And somewhere in the great darkness between stars, the universe continued to keep its accounts, patient and eternal, waiting to show each being the truth of what they had done. The warning had been given. The choice remained.